Alright lads, how's it going? We're back again in the Israeli tech tree. The suffering never ends for SAKO. Today we're taking a look at the Magach 3. Now, for many people, the Magach 5 in the Israeli tech tree at battery rating 8.0 is a highlight. It has decent mobility, decent survivability, and an excellent 105mm gun, and it gets access to DM23 at battery rating 8.0. This gives it very good firepower with acceptable levels of survivability and mobility. While it does have some downsides like the lack of a thermal imager, laser rangefinder, and a gun stabilizer most importantly, if you get into a static hold down position, the Magach 5 can be an excellent vehicle. But what happens if we take away that excellent DM23, we slap on some premium bonuses, and put it up for sale for the cost of nearly 9,000 golden eagles? Well, what we get is the Magach 3 ERA. This originally used to be a rank 5 premium in the American tech tree, but after the release of the Israeli tree, they basically just copy and pasted it. The Magach 3 sucked when it was just in the American tech tree, and it sucks even more that it's in the Israeli one. This tank sits at battery rating 8.0 for arcade, realistic, and simulator, and it is currently the only rank 5 premium in the Israeli tech tree. So we don't really have much variety to choose from, I'm afraid. But if you're trying to grind out the Israeli tech tree, I guess you're already used to that, seeing as it's just Magach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to infinity. But with some recent additions, like the Ram Segal in rank 7, as well as the sho't Cadelet in rank 6, which basically the same price, is picking up the Magach 3 ERA even worth it? And is it worth it even picking up on a sale for 50% off? Well, I'll get to that. First, let's go over some more basics. So for the Expert and Ace qualification, we're looking at 550,000 Silver Lions, and it's 1,300 Golden Eagles for the Ace. The Magach 3 is basically an American M48 that's been plastered with explosive reactive armor. This is the early type of ERA, meaning it is only effective against chemical munitions. When this premium was added to the American tech tree, the explosive reactive armor was quite a new feature, but now it is largely just a gimmick, as most tanks are going to be shooting at you with APDS rounds, and the majority of ATGMs fired by the infantry fighting vehicles will still be able to punch through the 260mm of additional protection the ERA provides you. So with all that being said, and quite a hefty price tag of 8,560 Golden Eagles, should we look at picking up the Magach 3 ERA? Well, being an M48 at heart, the tank is powered by an engine producing 750 horsepower. With the weight of nearly 50 tons, it gives us a power to weight ratio of 15 horsepower per ton. This is pretty bad for an 8.0 vehicle, especially considering we aren't a super heavy tank, so we can't really rely on our armor as we'll see in the next section. In general though, the acceleration does feel pretty good in the Magach 3, at least when you're going in a straight line. Problems arise though when you try to turn in the vehicle, as it's like the momentum just goes away. You just come to a grinding halt as soon as you press the A or the D key, similar to many British and I guess American heavy tanks. The top speed though of 49km/h is good and does suit the acceleration well, but the reverse speed of 8km/h is a little bit of a pain in the balls. When it comes to survivability, the Magach 3 isn't that good, to be honest. Let's start by looking at this cutaway. We can see that we have 4 crew members, 2 on the left side of the tank, this is the gunner and commander. We also have a driver in the center of the vehicle, and then a loader on the right hand side. Now, my dear viewer, if you squint, you may be able to see the excessive larger stockpiles of ammunition to the left and right of the driver, as well as directly in front of the loader. Taking a closer look at this image, we can also see that the loader appears to be severely overweight. He's got a bit of a beer belly on him. He's probably on loan from the British Army for some reason. He's had too much curry and lager. Taking a look at the vehicle from the side aspect, and again the ammunition placement isn't looking great. The ammunition is scattered basically everywhere in the turret. The ready rack of the Magach 3 is basically the ammunition at the loader's feet and to the loader's side and rear. So even taking a limited amount of ammunition into a battle isn't going to eliminate ammunition from the fighting compartment, which does make it a very easy tank to kill, especially if an enemy knows the ammunition layout. The party feature of this tank though, or so-called party feature, is the explosive reactive armor. This is the Blazer ERA. It provides 5mm of additional protection against kinetic energy munitions, as well as 260mm against chemical weapons, such as heat effects or anti-tank guided missiles. This ERA is plastered all on the lower frontal plate, upper frontal plate, turret front, and the turret sides. Against the most common heat effects round at your batter rating of 8.0, we can see that even with the ERA, the lower frontal plate, as well as the gun mantler, is still incredibly vulnerable to chemical munitions, with only the incredibly thick upper frontal plate of the M48 being able to stop the 400mm of penetration of the DM12 heat effects round. Against some more antiquated ammunition such as APC-BC round, in this case the BR412D fired by the T55AM1, we are still again incredibly vulnerable on the gun mantler and the lower frontal plate. Against the large caliber high explosive rounds such as the one fired by the Vidar, we can see that a hit to basically anywhere on the turret is going to splash down onto the weak top hull armor and overpressure the crew. So the survivability of the Magach 3 ERA is pretty much non-existent, to be honest, seeing as a lot of your games are going to be up tiers to 8-3 or at least 8-7, where you're going to be facing the horde of Soviet players. You cannot at all rely on your armor, and as we've seen, even with the ERA, you are still incredibly vulnerable to nearly all chemical munitions anyway. So the survivability is a big L in my opinion. So is the firepower any better? Well, like most of the American guns, we're using the 105mm M68. This uses the barrel of the British L7 gun, but with a gun breech of an American design basically. I assume this just allowed for a much higher pressure or chamber pressure, which in turn would lead to increased muzzle velocity. That is just my guess. We can carry 57 rounds of ammunition, but as I said, 22 of those rounds are first stage ammunition, which is in the fighting compartment of the turret. We have 9 degrees of gun depression and 19 degrees of gun elevation. Some more L's though is the targeting or the gunner skills. We can rotate the turret with an ace crew at only 24 degrees per second. This is rather slow. It's not as bad as some of the Soviet tanks at this batter rating, but you aren't going to be able to swing the gun onto a target quickly if you are being flanked by an enemy. Even worse is the vertical targeting speed. This is how fast the gun basically lowers or raises, and it can only move at 4 degrees per second. This means if an enemy is above you or below you, or you go around a corner and put your barrel into a building and the barrel rises up because Gaijin can't code, it means it's going to take you an absolute night and day to get the barrel back onto your targeting point. We then come on to the reload rate, and we can reload with a stock crew at 8.7 seconds, which is atrocious. But with an ace crew, that comes down to 6.7 seconds. Just goes to show you just how important it is to get those ace crews purchased. Another downside in my opinion is the gunner's optics. We have a standard zoom of 6.7 times, which is very high power for my liking. We also have an optional 8 times zoom, which doesn't really make a difference, to be honest. I'd rather have like a 2 times zoom and an optional 8 times, which doesn't really make you tunnel vision. Another major negative is the fact that this tank obviously does not have a gun stabilizer, which does leave you at a massive disadvantage in any sort of brawling engagement. You basically have to play this tank in a static position and let enemies be aggressive towards you. But do we have the ammunition to stop enemy aggressive players? Well, our stock round is the M392A2. This is a copy of the British 105mm APDS round, with 350mm of penetration at point blank range. This is a very strong round indeed, and does create pretty decent spalling and post-pen damage. We also have the M156 Hess shell, which has received a buff in the latest update, but it's still very inconsistent and basically just now acts like a large high explosive round. And finally we have the M152 Heater Fest shell. This travels much slower than the APDS, but arguably has better penetration. Just bear in mind that APDS rounds do create spalling when they penetrate an armoured tank, whereas the Heater Fest round just creates a cone of copper jet, I guess, meaning when you are using the Heater Fest, you will have to intentionally aim for crew members and ammunition. Both the post-pen damage of the APDS and Heatfest rounds in War Thunder at the minute are very questionable to say the least. The post-pen damage is very inconsistent, but even in this case I would still recommend using the APDS round on this tank. The Heatfest is slower, it's harder to aim at long range. Maybe if you're in a city map, then switch to the Heatfest rounds, but generally as a rule I prefer using the APDS rounds. So let's take a look at some of our most common opponents and see what our ammunition can do against them. Against the T55 AM1, our APDS round is rather questionable. It can't really go through the upper frontal plate. That is of course protected by the add-on composite armor scheme. You can go straight through the turret front though. This is quite a small target, especially at longer ranges, and you can't even rely on hitting the sides or the cheeks of the turret, as these again are protected by add-on composite armor blocks. Taking a look at the Heatfest round, while it does seem to be a sea of green, just bear in mind that the composite armor block on the upper frontal plate will stop the round going through here. This is a glitch on Gaijin's end. The point I'm trying to show here is that basically the Heatfest round and the APDS basically have the same penetration effectively in game. Against a T55 AM1 though, basically all the advantages are in the Soviet vehicle's hands, so I'd basically just run away. So boys, should you buy the Magach 3 ERA? Absolutely not. It's just not worth the money whatsoever. Even at a 50% off sale, I wouldn't really recommend this tank. Compared to the German Rank 5 Premium, the Term 3, which uses the exact same gun with the exact same ammunition, but that tank is fully stabilized and has a 5-second autoloader, but it only has a battle rating of 0.3 higher. You can really see just how much pain the Magach 3 ERA is in. Granted, the Term 3 is blatantly overpowered and has basically no survivability, but I'd much rather have more speed like the Term 3 compared to the Magach. It's just a trend in a lot of the minor nations in War Thunder. The premiums are just blatantly underpowered, intentionally so. They could easily have just given the Magach 3 ERA the M111 APFSDS round, the same round found on the Magach 5, and it wouldn't really change it wouldn't make the tank overpowered whatsoever. I think there are lots of premiums in War Thunder where Gaijin could go back to and maybe give them better rounds or take rounds away from them and put them in the lower battle rating. Like the XM1 could get a better round and go up to 9.7 or 10.0, where it would get a new lease of life. But that's pretty much it, lads. The Magach 3 is terrible. I'm having terrible pain grinding out the Israeli Tetri. I now do have the Rams to go, so expect a review on that in the coming weeks. But finally, lads, I'd like to thank my channel members, Lola Alphonse, Tans, Dabo LX, Dr. Bob, Thompson013, RS28 Sarmat, Schlunty, Van Halen, Diogenes, Econ, and Alan Hacker. Thank you very much, lads, for supporting the channel. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave a comment saying Ohio. If you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member by pressing the join button. Check out the Discord server where I frequently squad up with my members and friends, and don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Thanks again for watching, lads, and I'll see you in the next video.